Yeah, and let's by all means get into that because for me, I remember when I started my first company, and it was, this is back in the '90s. There was no such thing as work-life balance. People didn't talk about the stuff, and it was like 100% in the company. And I got burned out really bad doing that company. My wife got burned out from helping and from me being burned out, and it's like we just cannot function correctly when we're in that situation. And one of the things that you said is you talked about the stress, and now knowing that stress actually causes it's that it goes into that fight or flight mode, and when we're stressed, we go into that that fight mode, and our bodies literally change when we're stressed. I mean, we stop when you're stressed. You're in the fight mode. It's like your body stops digesting food as well. Your immune system it stops growing hair. That's why, to me, that's why people get sick when they're so stressed, is because all of these things are not functioning correctly. Because again, 1,000 years ago when we were being chased by a tiger, yeah, that's stressful. You don't need an immune system to run from a tiger, right? You don't need blood going, you don't need to digest your food. You need to get the hell out of there. But our bodies just don't know the difference between being chased by a tiger and having stress. And it's like it does the same effect on our bodies, and it does. It absolutely kills us.
Yeah, so what's really interesting is there's a super simple reason for why that happens, how our bodies are processing the stress. We have this tiny little part of our brain, like smaller than a walnut. It's called the amygdala. And it's sort of in the back, deep inside of our brain. And every single emotion that we experience, good, bad, of every level, it comes from that amygdala. It's the first response. And then that can set off from there all sorts of other responses. So if it sets off the stress response, then that leads down some of this confusion, this disorientation, this brain fog, heart racing. Your temperature might go up, your temperature might drop, and you probably feel awful. Like you mentioned, your digestion goes way down, and a whole bunch of other things take place in your body, all from this tiny, tiny thing in your brain called an amygdala that hasn't changed since sort of prehistoric times when, when, like you said, when we were being chased by dinosaurs and other hunters and things like this. So, yeah. When I learned about this part of your brain, it wasn't because I was interested in becoming more effective, to be honest with you. I learned about it because I had a condition that basically put my brain constantly in that fight or flight state. And what I realized was, that I had this like extreme fatigue, that I couldn't think clearly, I couldn't remember anything, all sorts of stuff, right? What I learned was, if I was doing more balance related things, like feel good things in life, like maybe cooking myself a nice meal, or going for a walk in the woods, or talking to some friends, or listening to a great podcast like your podcast, Sean. So when I was doing those things, I felt a lot better, and I felt like my neurologic symptoms sort of faded away. And what I learned over time, in fact, it's very interesting. Every doctor that I went to, and I have about 100 doctors that I've, maybe more, every doctor that I went to who knew my diagnoses, I have multiple fairly serious diagnoses, right? They would start the appointment with, how's your stress level? Every single one of these doctors. How's your stress level? Not how are your symptoms, not how's your family, not how's this medication? Are you having problems with it? What do you want to discuss today? It's how have your symptoms been? And that was the first clue for me. No one directly told me. It was just the first clue for me that there was a direct correlation between my symptoms and how I was feeling with this neurologic condition. So one day I actually asked My doctor, her name's Dr. Holler. She's a great woman. I said to her, why do you always start with that question? And this was more than, this was around 2010 probably. And she was like, oh yeah, that's because when you're stressed, it's affecting your autonomic nervous system, which yours is already not working efficiently. And therefore it's causing more problems with your blood pressure, your heart rate, all sorts of other things, which are making you feel sort of miserable. So I took from there an opportunity to sort of see if I could just test it out. I started to pay more attention to stress. And bit by bit, even though my diagnoses got worse, like significantly worse, my happiness improved and my well-being improved like 100%. My relationships, my physical health, my work, all of that improved because of some of these shifts. And that has to do with, sometimes I call them hacks, sometimes I call them, strategies. It's just a way of managing your brain, this brain response, so that you can be super effective.
Yeah. And so I often find when I talk with people that when we get put in situations, that's when we come up with solutions to things. And it's like, for you, you were put into a situation where you had to find a way to get a better balance, to reduce your stress because of your condition. It's like it was out of necessity, right? You had to do that. But the same tools that you use or that you found doing that because you had to can help people that aren't at that level of, anybody that has any type of stress, I think, or doesn't have any balance, I think can use the tools that you have. Again, it's not for anyone in particular. They're helpful for really everybody.
That's true. Very true, actually. And that's why I'm so passionate about what I do. I feel like this is my life purpose.